Alright. Shalom. Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shah Bakathum to the brothers. Shalom Yahweh Shema Alathun Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shah to the sisters. We're the Israelite School, Universal Practical Knowledge. Started at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. We are not affiliated with any other Israelite group nor any other Christian organization, alright? So now, tonight's class is the Lashawan Qadash class, alright? It's the Hebrew class. This is where we learn our language, man. This is the class where we learn our language. It's very important for so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans to learn their language and to learn their heritage and to learn their culture. It's very important to understand that. Alright? It's very important for us to learn our culture and to learn our heritage. Very, very important. And the reason why it's very important to understand is because to learn our language is to learn our culture. To learn our language is to learn our traditions given by the Most High. We highly need to learn this language. If you do not know the Hebrew language and you don't know how to speak the Lashawan Qadash, it's going to be very difficult for us as a nation and as a race of people to kind of understand where we come from, where we belong, and what the Bible is really talking about. I say this almost every other class. If you don't know the Hebrew, you're not really going to know the Bible. If you don't know the heritage and the culture of the Israelites and the Jews, right, which is what the Bible talks about, and who the Most High deals with, this is something that we have to understand. This is something that we have to take into consideration. All right. So just keep in mind that learning this language and learning the Lashawan Qadash is very important. Do not take learning this language lightly. Do not take learning the Lashawan Qadash in the Hebrew for granted, because this is something that we need to know. This is something that we need to learn as a nation and as a race of people. All right. So, of course, if you guys have any questions, when it comes to learning the Lashawan Qadash and learning the Hebrew, and you have any questions, please ask, put it into the live chat. Remember, it's very, very important to learn our language as a part of our culture, right? It's part of our heritage, it's part of our traditions. It's something that was taken away from us, and the Lord is bringing it back to us. All right. So we don't want to get, let's get fixated on learning our language, which is part of learning our culture. All right. So now today's lesson is going to be about the past tense. All right. We went over, if you pay attention to the previous classes, all right, we were building up to go back into learning the tenses. All right. So we started off with the present tense, and then we learned how to use subject pronouns, learned how to use object pronouns, and we learned how to use possessive pronouns. We also learned how to use possessive pronouns when they're pluralized. We also went, these are previous classes that I would love for you guys to look at and look back at. We also went on, if you guys want to learn it and study it, if you guys don't know this already. We also went over how to use off. All right, how to use off and why off is so important. All right, so we went over things like that to build back up to sentence structuring. Where we're at in the Lashawan Qadash right now in the Hebrew language, we're learning how to structure sentences properly. We're in the process of learning how to put sentences together. Now, when speaking the Lashawan Qadash, when speaking the Hebrew, it's very important to understand how to grammatically structure sentences. Grammar does matter in Hebrew. All right, just like how grammar matters in any other language, grammar does matter in Hebrew. You kind of we definitely want to be fixated and focus on learning the grammar when it comes to structuring sentences. You don't want to sound choppy when speaking to you don't want to sound choppy when you're trying to speak the Hebrew fluently. Now, is there a penalty against you speaking Hebrew choppily and not using grammar? No, not at all. There's nothing wrong with speaking in slang. There's nothing wrong. But before you speak in slang, you want to learn the proper way to speak. Just like you want to learn how to speak proper English before you start speaking shorthand English. Now, quote unquote, not to go into detail about English, but proper English is the way they speak it actually, like in England and Britain over there. But what I'm really referring to is the English that we speak in America. You learn that way first before you start shorthanding English, like using contractions and things like that, and etc. etc. We want to wait. We want to wait before we get there, because there are contractions. There is a way to speak Hebrew and slang. There are contractions in the Lashawan Qadash where you can shorthand a word without saying the full word. There's plenty of that throughout the scriptures. All right, our language is very spiritual. All right, our language is very spiritual. So our language sometimes can be slang itself, even though it could be grammatically written. Sometimes it is slang at times too as well. And that's why it's so important to come to this class, because you'll learn all of that and you'll be able to take your notes, and we'll all be able to learn together and learn this language together and how to speak it fluently with each other. So, we can start talking smack about Edomites without them realizing that we're talking about them. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. That was kind of my drive and my push. I always wanted to talk about Africans and Elamites and East Indians and Arabs and the so-called white man behind their back, while they don't even know, like, what is this Negro saying? And I thought he was black, and I'm gonna be like, in Hebrew, I ain't black. I just know my culture, I just know my traditions. That's all. So I'm talking smack about how much the devil you are, but you don't know. You know what I'm saying? So that was my drive to learn the language. Everyone else has a different drives, but let's get to it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about the past tense. All right. So we're gonna be on the past tense. The past tense is something very important, man. So we went over the present tense before. Now we're going to go over the rules of the past tense. Now, the present tense is actually very easy to understand, very basic. That's the present tense. The past tense is it's not difficult. It's actually very informational. All right. So it's not the past tense is not hard at all. It's very informational though, but it's very easy to understand once we break it down. And I'm gonna get it on the board. I'm gonna write it in the Paleo. I'm also gonna write it in the Assyrian, and we're gonna go over the rules when it comes to speaking in the past tense. Because the present tense and the past tense, these are okay. I'm doing it. I'm teaching it based off of how can I say it? Easiness, right? Like skill level. It's easy to speak the past tense. The present tense. Then we're going to get into the present tense. It's easy to speak the present tense. Then we're going to get into the past tense. So, lucky, I said that backwards. All right. So let's get how to say certain things in the past tense. So we're going to use the verb nathun. Does anybody know what nathun means? Does anybody know what nathun means? Before I write on the board, does anybody know what nathun means? Let me know if you guys know what nathun means. Hey, go sit down for me, warrior. Does anybody know what nathun means? You can type it into the live chat if you know what nathun means. Nathun. Anybody? Let me check. Let me see if anyone put it into the live chat. Let's see. Does anybody know what nathun means? Okay, no sweat. So nathun or nathan. Alright, either or nathan. However you may want to pronounce it. Nathan. Alright, depending who you are, that's how you pronounce it. Nathun meaning to give. Alright? Nathun means to give. Nathun means to give. Alright? Thun means to give. Let's see. Can everybody see that on the board? It's like a glare right there. Let's see. Let me try to fix that glare for y'all. All right. Can everybody still see the board a little bit? Okay, the board can still be seen. Let me see if that was good too. Okay, so the board can still be seen. Okay, so what we have is Nathun. All right, Nathun meaning to give. Alright, Nathun means to give. That's what Nathun means. So we're gonna use Nathan or Nathun to explain the present tense. I mean the past tense, Alafi. Remember, Nathun meaning to give. So Nathun means to give, alright? Calm down. Alright, so now so we're going to be on the past tense, we're going to use the verb Nathun. Now there are rules when it comes to using the past tense. So now remember, when it comes to learning the Lashawan Qadash, when it comes to learning the Hebrew, you want to, subject pronouns matter. When it comes to using your subject pronouns, does everybody remember your subject pronouns? Remember, subject pronouns are like your I's, your you's, right? Your he's, your she's, your we's, right? Your y'all's, like your you plurals, right? And they. Right? So these are like your subject pronouns, right? You got your I, your you's, your he's, your she's, you got your we's, you got your you plurals, and then you got your they's. Like these are examples of subject pronouns. Understanding, that's why we went over subject pronouns, we went over object pronouns, and we also went over possessive pronouns, because these all play very important parts when it comes to structuring a sentence. Either it's in the present tense, either it's in the past tense, or even if it's in the future tense, alright? Alright? So it's very important to understand how to structure sentences grammatically when it comes to structuring these sentences. These subject pronouns matter, alright? Based off of the subject pronoun, which is like your I, which is like your you, which is like your he, which is like your she, which is like your we, which is like your you plural, which is like your they, based off of your subject pronoun is how you're going to conjugate the verb in the present, the past, or the future tense. Tonight's class, we're in the past tense. We're going to work on conjugating the verbs in the past tense today. Alright? Conjugate meaning to change. Okay? A lot of verbs change no matter what language you're speaking. A lot of verbs do have a change when it comes to speaking in a certain tense. There's a present tense in English, there's a past tense in English, then there's a future tense in English. But now, of course, depending on the language, the conjugations differ. Alright? In Hebrew, the conjugations differ. Like in Spanish, in Portuguese, the conjugations kind of differ depending on the language you speak. But of course, we're speaking in the Hebrew today, so So we're going to focus on how to conjugate these verbs in the past, present, or the future. But we're going to be focusing on the past tense this lesson. We went over the past tense. Make sure you go onto our channels and look it up. All right, do not forget. So conjugating meaning to change. So when it comes to speaking in the past, the present, the future, the focus is on the verb. It's not focused on the noun, it's focusing on the verb. The verb is what's changing. All right? So you need verbs in order to make sentences. All right? You need subject pronouns, you need object pronouns, you need possessive pronouns, right, to form a sentence. You need verbs and nouns to form a sentence. All right? You need object pronoun. I already said that, not object pronouns. You need I'm thinking of another pronoun. It'll come to me because I was just teaching it last week with the I. It's dealing with a object. You need not obsolete. It'll come to me. Salaki. I don't know why I'm having a blank. All right. I don't know why I'm having a blank, but I want to say an absolute object, but that's not. It's not a distinct object. I'm getting close to what I want to say, by the way, because I think it's what it be. A direct object. You need direct objects when it comes to speaking. You need direct objects in your sentences, and you need to know what a direct object is when it comes to structuring sentences. All right. So let's get I on the board. So does anybody know how to say I in Hebrew? You guys can put it into the live chat while I write it on the board. How do you say I or I am in Hebrew? Does anybody know? You can put it into the live chat as well. But how do you say I or I am? How do you say I or I am in the Hebrew? Anybody know? Anybody know at all? Okay, so you would say anya. So anya meaning I or I am. So anya. This is how you would say I or I am in the Hebrew. Alright. This is how you would say I or I am in the Hebrew. It's pronounced anya. Alright, it's pronounced anya. Anya is how you would say I or I am. That's how you would say it. I or I am. Alright. I or I am. This is the subject pronoun. This is how you're going to know how to conjugate the verb. The verb that we're going to be using, right, is nathan. This is the verb nathan right here. This is what we're going to be using. Alright, that's the verb that we're going to be using tonight in tonight's class, meaning to give. Okay? Now, remember, when it comes to conjugating verbs in the Lashawan Qadash, when it comes to conjugating the verb in the Hebrew, your subject pronoun matters. Based off of your subject pronoun is how you're going to conjugate the verb. So based off your subject pronoun is how you're going to conjugate the verb. Alright? This is in the past tense. This is in the past tense. So the subject pronoun here is I am. I am is anya. This is how you write Anya in the Paleo. This is how you write Anya, right? Anya in the Assyrian. Now, this is how you would conjugate. This is how you would conjugate the verb Nathan in the Lashawan Qadash. All right, in the Hebrew. We're going to get on the board for you. Here we go. So we're going to get how to conjugate Nathan. All right, on the board. So here we go on the board. All right. I'm going to double check to make sure everybody can see. Okay. Perfect. So now. Perfect. Everybody can see it. What's up? Okay, so this is how, alright, Salaki, so this is the past tense on how you conjugate the verb Nathan, right? So it doesn't look, it may look like what the heck is going on, alright? Not so much. You know, take a chill, take a breather, alright? It's not as hard as you think, alright? I'm going to break it down to you. So, remember, the subject pronoun is what matters. This is the subject pronoun. This is what matters. In order to know how to conjugate the verb, you have to know the subject pronoun. If you do not know the subject pronoun, or do not use the subject pronoun, alright, this is how you're going to know how to conjugate the verb Nathan in the Hebrew. So now here we go. This is pronounced Anya. This is how you conjugate it right here. This is your na, this is your tha, and this is your na. That's Nathan. Then you have a tha and then a ya at the end. Thaya. So Nathan Thaya. Nathan Thaya. Same here in the Assyrian. This is your na. This is your tha. This is your na. That's your Nathan. This is your tha. This is your ya. Nathan thaya. Nathan thaya. I wrote it in the English as well so we know. Nathan thaya. This is how you conjugate the verb nathan based off of the subject pronoun I or I am in the Hebrew. It's nathan thaya. That's the rule. You have to put thaya at the end of the verb. You want to know verbs, okay? When it comes to learning and speaking the Lashawan Qadash, learn as many verbs as you can. Like in Spanish, when you try to learn Spanish and try to speak Spanish, the teacher will always tell you to learn as many verbs as you can. Because a lot of our sentences will always have some form of action, right? In every sentence, it's guaranteed that you have some type of verb. And learning verbs is dang near learning the language. The more verbs you know, the more you can structure sentences. Because nouns will eventually come along. You'll learn words throughout the way. You'll start to learn words, bit by bit, piece by piece, the more you study and learn. But you want to study verbs in the Hebrew. You want to know as many verbs as you can. Alright? In the Isupk, we have a document called the 100 most common verbs. You kind of want to memorize all those verbs. Even myself, not every once in a while, actually, maybe twice or 3 times a week, I'll look over the 100 verbs and try to memorize them by heart. Alright? I'll go through each line, right? Because it's in like 5 or 6 rows, and down each row, I'll try to remember by heart. And I would get someone to test me, right? Knowing like, hey, what's this, what's that, what's this, what's that, and I'll try to speak it on the top of my head based off of what it is. So you want to learn as many verbs as possible when it comes to speaking the Hebrew. All right. All right. So it's very important so you want to learn as many verbs as possible. All right? So let's get it. Let me double check and see everybody can see the board. I believe everybody can see the board. All right. But I had to get rid of them glares for a second, so I know it's kind of dark. Okay, it's not too dark because I have the other light in there, but that's good. Okay. So this is what matters right here also as well. The thaya. So to speak on that, no matter what verb you use, it doesn't matter the verb. It doesn't matter what verb you use. It doesn't have to be nathan. But we're using nathan today as an example. So it doesn't have to be nathan. Alright? It doesn't have to be the verb nathan. We're just using that today as an example. Alright? Alright, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so you can use whatever verb you want to use, it does not matter. But the thaya has to go at the end of it when you're conjugating the verb based off of the subject pronoun. Remember, the subject pronoun matters, right? The subject pronoun is how you know how to conjugate it. And the way you conjugate this verb, and no matter what verb it is in the Hebrew, it will always be thaya. Thaya, 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 nathan thaya. Which means I gave. Which means to I gave. I gave. That's what nathan thaya means. I gave. Nathan thaya, meaning I gave something. Alright? So the subject pronoun does matter. The subject pronoun matters because that's how you know how to conjugate the verb. Alright? If you have any questions, just let me know. All right. All right. So let's get it. So now, remember, Nathan Thaya. It's pronounced Nathan Thaya. Another point too as well. You want to when it comes to reading the Hebrew, when it comes to reading the Lashawan Qadash in the actual Bible, you kind of also want to focus on the fact of how to, let me start over. Here's the reason why you want to learn as many verbs as possible. Because you want to distinguish what verb is being used so you're not confused on what to say. Alright, and this is what I mean. You're going to see Nathan in the Hebrew, in the Bible. But there's going to be different letters at the end and at the beginning and at the end of the word. So you have the word Nathan, right? Then you're going to have letters at the end of the word. And then you also may have letters in the beginning of the word, right? So you want to learn these verbs so you're not confused on how to pronounce them and how to figure it out. If you don't know the verb Nathan, you might pronounce this as Nathanathaya, right? Nathanathaya, and that's not correct because you don't know. Nathan is the root word. Nathan is the root. Nathan is the root verb. So because you don't know the root verb and you don't know the root, it's going to confuse you. All right, you're not going to know, and you might be pronouncing these words incorrectly. And you want to refrain from speaking words incorrectly. You want to know and study the Hebrew so you know how to speak this. All right, especially as a priest. Because we speak the Lashawan Qadash in the Sabbath service. And we read different scriptures in the Lashawan Qadash in the Sabbath service. You do not want to pronounce these words incorrectly, right, when it comes to learning and studying the Hebrew. All right? That's going to mislead a lot of brothers and sisters on how to pronounce words correctly. Because you're also breaking these words down when we also read it in English when we translate it. All right? So, remember, you want to know the root word. You want to know the root word or the root verb in this case. You want to know the root word or the root verb, right? You want to know so you're not confused, all right? So you know when to cut off the ah sound at the end and then continue to say these letters. Like Nathan, Thaya, Nathan, Thaya, Nathan, Thaya, meaning I gave, Nathan, Thaya. So if I wanted to say I gave this person something, I would say Nathantaya or Anya Nathantaya. You don't have to say the subject pronoun. So like in Spanish, when you're using verbs and you're using verbs and you're conjugating verbs, technically speaking, you do not have to use the subject pronoun due to the fact that it's already implied because the conjugation is based off of the subject pronoun. Well, just like in Hebrew, the subject pronoun, right, does not have to be said. It's optional. You can say it if you want to, but it's not mandated for you to say it because the way you conjugate the verb is automatically based off of the subject pronoun you're using. Now, in some cases, like for instance, the present tense, you may want to say the subject pronoun at times because due to the fact that the conjugations are very similar no matter what subject pronoun you use. I think the only time it really changes up is when you start getting into plurals, right? And even then, because the plurals are very similar in the present tense, you want to use the subject pronoun when conjugating verbs in the present tense, in the past tense, and the future tense. Because each one is slightly different from each other, it is okay for you to not say the subject pronoun because the verb is already conjugated the verb is already conjugated based off the subject pronoun. So you don't have to say it. It's just like Spanish. Alright, just like Spanish in a way. Just like Spanish. Alright? Just like Spanish. All right, here we go. All right, so now let's get another one. All right, let's get another one. All right. So let's get the subject pronoun you. Let's get the subject pronoun you and how to conjugate the subject pronoun you. All right, we're going to learn how to use. It's very easy to understand. It's not too difficult. All right, I'm going to try to explain it and give as many examples as possible so there is no confusion. All right, because I don't want any confusion. The Lord is not the author of confusion. All right, I'll say that one more time. The Lord is not the author of confusion. He is not the author of confusion. Okay. Well, I'm not quite finished yet. So this is the subject pronoun you. Now we're going to get the conjugation. All right, we're going to get the conjugation next. Now we're still going to use Nathan as an example. We're still going to use Nathan as an example. All right. We're still going to use Nathan as an example. Why? Because it's a very easy verb to remember. And it's a very nice verb to use because we all should be given in some shape, in some way, shape, and form. All right, in some way, shape, and form. So let's get it. All right, let's get it. Okay, so what we have on the board, is how to conjugate the verb Nathan based off of the subject pronoun you. All right, we are going. Okay, Slakia. So we're going to learn how to conjugate the verb Nathan, meaning to give, based off of the subject pronoun atha, meaning you. Now remember, when it comes to conjugating verbs in the Lashawan Qadash, in the Hebrew language, it's based off of the subject pronoun. Do not forget that. When it comes to conjugating verbs, it's always based off of the subject pronoun being used. So your subject pronoun matters. Now this is you. Now in the past tense, It doesn't matter if it's in the masculine tense or in the feminine tense. It doesn't matter if it's in the position of authority tense or the subservient tense, alright? Alright? So this is for both. Okay, no matter who you're speaking to, who you're talking to and about, this is what you would use. This is what you would use. Alright? So remember, also look back at the previous classes on both of our channels. Alright, when it comes to learning how to use subject pronouns, object pronouns, possessive pronouns, because this is what's going to help us structure sentences in the Hebrew. Just like in Spanish, alright, subject pronouns matter when conjugating verbs. Conjugating, meaning to change. So here we go. This is a tha. This is your this is your tha, this is your ha in the Paleo. This is your this is your tha, this is your ha in the Syrian. I have it in the English right here as well. Alright, I have this in the English. I have it in the English here as well. Alright, a tha, right here. A tha in the English. Alright, a tha. A tha is pronounced a tha, meaning you. So a tha is the subject pronoun you. So if you're referring to like a you, like you or you, whatever the case may be, you would say a tha. Alright? A tha is a subject pronoun. Okay. The subject pronoun for a tha, for you, is a tha. Remember that. The subject pronoun for you is a tha. Because remember, there is a way, right? There is a way for you to be a object pronoun is a completely different way to say it. Alright? So remember, you want to learn subject pronouns, object pronouns, and possessive pronouns because there's a difference how to say it. The subject pronoun you is different how you would say the object pronoun for you. They're two different, it's different. They're not the same. So you want to pay close attention to those small details. That's why we went over the subject pronouns and the object pronouns and the possessive pronouns in order to get this far. Okay? Because it plays a very important role when it comes to structuring sentences in the Lashawan Qadash. Now, a tha is how you would say you. A tha is the subject pronoun for you in the Hebrew. Now, this is once again, we still have the verb to give. Nathan meaning to give. Nathan means to give. Right? That's in the Lord's Prayer, right? Nathan lanawa, give to us. Right? Right? Nathan meaning to give. Right? Give us our daily bread. Nathan lanawa lacham. Right? So you have a na, a tha, and a na here, which is Nathan. You have a ha at the end of that. You have a ha at the end of that. Now you want to pay very close attention to that, right? You want to play very close. You want to pay very close attention to that detail, because this is a ha, right? And this is a verb, right? Right? If you're reading it in the Hebrew, right? If you're reading it in the scriptures, you might think that this is saying something completely different, right? And here's why. You may not see this as the past tense. You may think that this is. You might think that this is someone saying Nathanha, meaning give him, right? Because ha is him. The word ha at the end of a verb is a object pronoun for him. That's why it's very important to understand the differences between a subject pronoun, an object pronoun, and the possessive pronoun. So in this case, specifically, you may want to use, right? You may want to use the subject pronoun, right, to make someone understand that you're trying to conjugate the verb give to gave, right? By putting a ha at the end of it. Nathanha, right? You gave. Not you give him, but you gave him, right? You want to Salaki, I take that back. You want to refrain from making someone realize that this is the past tense, meaning you gave someone something and not specifically you gave him, right? You would actually have to add a extra ha at the end to make that you gave him. I want you guys to understand that too. You want to right? So, but hopefully that's not confusing you guys. But to understand, right, in this specific case, Nathanha means you gave. You right here, na, a tha, and a na, and a ha. Nathanha, meaning you gave. It's not saying give him, it's saying you gave, and that's it. Alright, so you want to be able to know that difference. Do not allow that to confuse you when reading the scriptures. A ha at the end of a verb doesn't always mean that it means him, the object pronoun him. The ha at the back of a verb can also mean that that verb is conjugated in the past tense by using the subject pronoun you. Alright? Okay. So this is something, this is, like I said, it's not too difficult to understand. It's very easy to be understood. Don't allow this to discourage you. Don't allow this to confuse you, okay? So this is how you would conjugate the verb nathan in the past tense based off of the subject pronoun you. So it would be nathanha, meaning you gave. So athan nathanha, meaning you gave. Well, what did you give? What did you give to this person? Well, athan nathanha, I gave love. Right? I gave love. So that's a sentence. I gave love. Right? So I would say, well, not I gave love, you gave love. So I would say, athan nathanha, you gave love. That's me saying you gave love, right? Athan nathanha aha, right? Meaning you gave love. So athan nathanha aha, meaning you gave love, right? That's a way that you would use this in a sentence, okay? All right. Of course, we will get examples on the board. We're going to go over the past tense one more time next week, of course, and then get more into the nitty-gritty of how it's going to look like in an actual sentence and put together, okay, in an actual sentence, all right? But we're going to go over how to conjugate these sentences. It's like how to conjugate these verbs in order to structure these sentences. So, atha, nathanha, you gave, all right? You gave. Alright? You gave. Nathanha. Atha nathanha. Atha nathanha. Meaning you gave. Alright? Remember, if you guys have any questions, just put it into the live chat. Alright? Just put it into the live chat. Alright, select it. Alright, if you have any questions, make sure you put it into the live chat. This is how you would conjugate nathan, right? The verb nathan based off of the subject pronoun atha. Alright, this is how you would do it. Alright, this is how you would do it. Remember, when it comes to conjugating verbs, in the Hebrew, alright, the subject pronoun matters. Alright, I keep saying this over and over again too. I don't know if you guys have learned how to speak Spanish, alright, or even Portuguese or whatever the case may be, but when it comes to conjugating verbs in the Spanish, right, you have to know the subject pronoun, right, because based off of the subject pronoun is how you conjugate that verb in Spanish. Well, Hebrew is very similar. you conjugate the verb based off of the subject pronoun being used. Alright? Like I is a subject pronoun. You is a subject pronoun. He is a subject pronoun. She is a subject pronoun. We is a subject pronoun. You plural, like you all, right, is a subject pronoun. They, these are subject pronouns, right? So based off of these subject pronouns is how you conjugate these verbs, all right, in the past tense. Okay. Here we go. All right, let's get the next one. Let's get the next one. This one is an easy one. All right, this one's a very easy one. And because it's so easy, I'm going to explain why it's also very important to understand, all right, when it comes to learning how to speak the Hebrew grammatically correct. All right? When you're first learning it, you want to speak the Hebrew grammatically correct because it matters. It does matter at times. You want to learn how to grammatically structure sentences because it matters. All right? Don't allow anyone to tell you that it doesn't matter. Because Peace and Officer Dr. Rashomap is telling you that it matters when it comes to and the Bible tells you when you're reading it that it matters when you start speaking and structuring sentences in the Lashawan Qadash in the Hebrew. Alright? I'm going to pay very, very close attention to that. Alright? Very close attention. That is an ugly hop. Here we go. Here we go on the board now. So, what we have on the board now is the subject pronoun, right? The subject pronoun he. Remember, when it comes to conjugating verbs in any tense, no matter if it's the past tense, no matter if it's the present tense, no matter if it's the future tense, the subject pronoun is how you conjugate it. All right, you always conjugate these verbs based off of the subject pronoun. You don't base it off of anything else but the subject pronoun. All right, it's based off of the subject pronoun. All right, you always conjugate verbs based off of the subject pronoun. So what we have right here is how to conjugate the subject of the verb nathan based off of the subject pronoun he. Now, this is how you would say he in the Lashawan Qadash. Salaki, this is how you would say he in the Lashawan Qadash right here. It's hawa'ah. I wrote it in the English so you guys see it and know how to pronounce it. This is your ha in the paleo. This is your wa in the paleo. Your ah in the paleo and your ha in the paleo. Same here in the Assyrian. Your ha in the Syrian, your wa in the Syrian, your ah in the Assyrian, and then your ha again in the Syrian. Alright, you see this? Hawa'ah. Right, you see this? Hawa'ah. Also wrote it in the English, here and here. Hawa'ah. Hawa'ah. Alright? Which means he. So Hawa'ah is the subject pronoun for he in the Hebrew. Now, how to conjugate the verb in the past tense based off of the subject pronoun he, which is Hawa'ah, is Nathan. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. Alright? Nothing changes. Remember that. Nothing changes. The verb stays the same. That's how you conjugate it. The verb stays the same. That's the conjugation for he. Now, this is the point I want to make. Why it's very important to learn how to structure sentences grammatically correct and to speak the Lashawan Qadash grammatically correct. Because if you just leave verbs unconjugated, right, even though you're speaking in slang, you can confuse someone, right? Because here we go. You could be saying, you're probably trying to tell me he's giving me something, but in reality, right, I may be thinking that you're saying he gave me something or he gave something or whatever the case may be. It can either be give or gave, right? That's why it's important to understand how to conjugate the verbs grammatically correctly, how to structure these sentences grammatically correct. Because based off how you conjugate the verb, I will be able to tell the difference from giving and gave. Because if you wanted to give me something, which is in the present tense, it's a completely different conjugation. But if you leave Nathan as it is, then that's the correct conjugation for the past tense for he, which is Hawa'ah. So we want to keep that in consideration when it comes to structuring sentences in the Lashawan Qadash. That's why it's very important to understand and how to structure sentences grammatically correct in the Lashawan Qadash in the Hebrew language. All right, that's another point. So that's another reason why I always like to focus. On the fact of learning how to conjugate verbs in the present, the past, and the future, because you'll be able to tell the difference between different conjugations on how it is. Instead of speaking in slang and not conjugating the verb, it can cause confusion. Now, of course, the more skilled we come in this language, the more we'll be able to tell when someone's speaking in slang, and based off the context of the sentence, we'll be able to tell if it's present, past, or future without the conjugations. But to make life easier for everyone in the beginning of learning how to speak the Hebrew, and to make everything easier for everyone when it comes to conjugating the verbs in the Lashawan Qadash and structuring these sentences correctly and wanting to learn how to speak the Hebrew language, you want to take in consideration, all right, right, to conjugate these verbs in the present, the past, or the future. All right? So remember that. That is how you conjugate it. All right? This is how you conjugate Nathan in the past tense, based off of the subject pronoun he, which is Hawa'ah. So you would say Hawa'ah Nathan. Hawa'ah Nathan. You would say Hawa'ah Nathan, meaning he gave. Alright, Hawa'ah Nathan, meaning he gave. Alright. So Anya Nathantaya, meaning I gave. Right? Athan Nathanha, meaning you gave. Now we have is Hawa'ah Nathan, meaning he gave. So now we know how to conjugate Nathan in three ways. Pretty easy, right? Not too bad, right? Not too difficult. As long what makes this easier, and what's going to make this easy, is knowing the subject pronoun. That's what makes conjugation so easy, is knowing the subject pronoun. As long as you know the subject pronoun and remember the rule that goes with it, right? It's not too difficult, right? It's not too difficult at all. The past tense is fairly easy itself. Of course, you're going to have to remember, right? You want to study what is what rule goes to what, and how to conjugate it, of course. That's what you're studying. All right? That's what you're studying. It takes time. It's all about baby steps too. All right? It's all about baby steps too as well. All right? It's all about baby steps too as well. Remember, what's going to help you learn the Hebrew as well, right, is studying, of course. Right? The Lord says, rehearse the righteous acts. You're not just going to be able to come to class Friday and expect to be a Hebrew scholar, right, and some Lashawan Qadash scholar, and know how to speak Hebrew fluently just coming to class every Friday each week. That's not how you learn the language. Some people actually have to travel to different countries to learn the language of the people that they want to talk to, because they have to immerse themselves in it. They have to throw themselves in the fire, right? You can do that. Like if you want to learn Spanish, you're not going to learn Spanish on your own. I want everyone to understand that. No one's going to learn any language on your own. That has never happened in history. No one just learns a language and speaks it fluently on their own. There's other people there helping them out and teaching them and speaking this language to them so they can be familiar with this language. It don't matter if it's English, Spanish, Portuguese, Creole, whatever the case may be, right? There's always someone else. All right? So if you want to learn how to speak Spanish, you might want to throw yourself in a lot of Spanish conversations among Spanish people, right? So you can become fluent and understand how the language is spoken and what's being said and different words and etc. to become fluent and very well to speak this language. All right? Well, Hebrew is no different. You're going to have to practice on your own, and you're going to have to speak with brothers and sisters that actually know the language. All right? There are brothers and sisters in the school that know how to speak the Lashawan Qadash very well. Right? And I admire them. It's amazing. I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could speak this Hebrew just as good as you. Right? I admire them. I'm like, man, this is crazy. I need to get to this type of level. All right? So, and how do you do it? You study it. And the more we speak Hebrew to each other, the more we all understand it. We want to, instead of cheating ourselves, we want to treat ourselves. All right? Don't be afraid to speak a word in Hebrew to someone. There's nothing wrong with saying something in Hebrew than translating it for someone. The more you do that, the more they just understand the translation. Like, we no longer have to translate shalom to each other. We know what it means. We no longer have to translate the water because we know what it means. We no longer have to translate ayandabar because we know what it means. We don't need to translate biblical shah because we know what it means. Because we say it so much, right? It's like second nature. Well, do that with every word that you learn, right? So it can become second nature. Allow this right here to become second nature, right? I'm even doing it myself, so it can become second nature, right? I think, in my opinion, when it comes to the present tense, I'm almost second nature with it. Almost. I'm still studying on it. The past tense, not so much. The future tense, I'm getting there, right? Right? But the present tense, because it's very easy, and the conjugations are the same, is why I say I'm almost second. It's almost like second nature to me, because it was very easy to understand. And I've been studying the present tense for a longer time. Now I'm on to the past tense and studying it. All right. So remember, when it comes to conjugations, it's always based off the subject pronoun. All right. And remember, the Lord says, rehearse the righteous acts. It takes practice. Remember how people say practice makes perfect? Well, that's correct. In order to be perfect, you have to practice. And you can strive and you will become perfect. No one's perfect. No, you can be perfect. All Alright? You can be perfect. You most definitely can. Alright? Being perfect doesn't mean that you know your finger isn't twisted up or you might stutter every once in a while. That has nothing to do with being perfect. Alright? Being perfect, depending on the context, deals with the law and just keeping God's law. Being perfect here in context just deals with you be able to understand the language and learn it and be well at it. Alright? And be good at it. To the point where you perfected it. Alright? Remember, Anya. Lay down. It's locky.
That's funny.
No, it's not funny. It's dangerous. Alright. Lay down. Now. Alright, so now you have Anya. Alright, you have Anya, Nathantaya, meaning I gave, right? And then you have Nathanha, which means you gave, and what we have on the board is Hawa'a Nathan, meaning he gave. Now let's get she gave. Right? Alright, she gave. Let's get that. It's like Nathan Tha for you gave. Nathan Tha. Alright, Nathan Tha. Not Nathan Ha. It's like Nathan Tha. Alright, Nathan Tha for you gave. It's like it. Nathan Tha, meaning you gave. Alright. Alright, let's get it. Alright. Here we go. So not too much of a difference. Alright. So you have Haya'a. Haya'a is how you say she. Alright, the subject pronoun for she is Haya'a. So Hawa'a for he, Haya'a for she. So Haya'a. Remember, to conjugate these verbs, you have to know the subject pronoun. Without the subject pronoun, you're not going to be able to conjugate these verbs. Right? Everything is based off of the subject pronoun. Alright? Everything is based off the subject pronoun. If you don't know the subject pronoun, it's going to confuse you. Alright? It's going to confuse you if you do not know the subject pronoun. So Haya'a is the subject pronoun, alright? Haya'a. Hayya'a is the subject pronoun for she. Alright? When you conjugate these verbs, it's always based off the subject pronoun. So in the Hebrew, when you want to conjugate a verb, it's based off of the subject pronoun. Remember that. Alright? So you have Hayya'a Nathana. Right? Nathana is how you would conjugate the verb Nathan in the past tense. Alright? For she, Hayya'a, meaning she. So Hayya'a Nathana. That's how you would conjugate Nathan. You would add a ha at the end. And it's pronounced Nathana, meaning she gave. Nathana. Nathana, meaning she gave. So Hayya'a Nathana. Nathana. Hayya'a Nathana. 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 Alright? Nathana. Nathana. Hayya'a Nathana. Alright? Nathana. Hayya'a meaning she. Nathana meaning she gave. Meaning gave. Alright? Nathan is the verb to give. When you say Nathana, meaning that ha at the end, that makes it she gave. Alright? So this is the conjugation for Nathan, based off of the subject pronoun she. Alright? Hayya'a Nathana. She gave. So Hayya'a Nathana, and whatever she gave. She gave him. Hayya'a Nathana. She gave him. Alright? She gave him books. So, Hayya'a Nathanaha Saparya. She gave him books. Right? Whatever the case may be. Right? Whatever sentence you would like to create. Right? But remember, conjugations is very important. Alright? Conjugations are very important. Alright? You want to work on conjugating verbs in the past, the present, and the future. That's the only way you're going to be able to understand a sentence based off of the right conjugations. Like I said, the more we become fluent in this language, the more we will understand verbs and sentences being structured without certain conjugations. But right now, we want to focus on conjugations because it will help everyone tell and know what's being said when that sentence is being structured, or when that sentence is structured. Just like in the Bible, when you start reading the Bible in Hebrew, you're going to now be able to tell the difference. All right, the difference between, not the difference. You're going to be able to tell what's being said. All right, based off of the conjugations. All right. You will know what's being said based on the conjugations and how it's written, etc., etc. Not too bad, right? If you guys have any questions, make sure you put it into the live chat. Alright? Remember, to conjugate it, right, you have atha. You have anya, which is I. Nathantaya. Alright? So I gave. You have you gave. Atha. Nathantha. Nathantha. Meaning you gave. Then you have he gave. Hawa'a Nathan. Right? Hawa'a Nathan, meaning he gave. Then you have she gave. Hayya'a Nathana. Or Nathana. Or Nathana. Nathana, Nathana. Nathana. Either or. Nathana, Nathana. Whatever you want to put emphasis on, for sure, is Nathana. Alright, Hayya'a Nathana. So you have Anya Nathantaya, you have Atha Nathanta, then you have Hawa'a Nathan, and now you have Hayya'a Nathana. All right. So now we know 4 conjugations. We will be going over this again. Do not sweat it. Do not worry about it. All right. Do not be discouraged if you don't remember it. You can rewatch the class. All right. I believe I wrote ha. I wrote ha for a tha. And it's supposed to be a tha. All right. It's supposed to be a tha. All right. Also, we have documents in the Isupk. We have the present, past, and future tense documents, so you can also study on your own time as well. So if you guys are interested in getting these documents, you guys can put your emails into the live chat, and I will email you these documents so you can study on your own as well and have a record. All right, all right. So if you're not watching the class, or when I say how can I say it? Not rewatching the class, all right. But if you're not in class at that time, and the Hebrew class is not up, you can study on your own time. What I mean by when the Hebrew class isn't up, I'm referring to, all right. So like I'm referring to when there's no Lashawan Qadash class, like on Saturday or Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. All right. These are times where you can go into your notes and study. All right. The Lord says, rehearse the righteous acts. We want to do that more frequently in everything we do when it comes to this truth. The Sabbath service, the language, the scriptures, the way we hold posts on Shamar at camp, all these things play a factor when it comes, all right? Rehearse the righteous acts, man. The Lord said rehearse the righteous acts. Very important. Very important. No matter what we do in this truth, we want to rehearse the righteous acts. Being a priest, for sure, we want to rehearse the righteous acts. Why? Because being a priest is a very important job. All right? Very important job. You cannot make any mistake as a priest. And during the time of Moses, if you did something the Lord told you not to do as a priest, you were killed right there and then as a priest. And the Lord will swallow you up right there and then. That's why in Joshua, the Lord said, was it Joshua? I think in Judges, the Lord says, rehearse the righteous acts. Alright? That's why the Lord put that there. And the Lord said we're supposed to be a nation of priests. So that goes for brothers and sisters. Rehearse the righteous acts. Because no matter what we do, if we are not practicing how to be righteous and to make ourselves perfect to be righteous, the Lord can put us to death for it. Alright? So we want to do that in everything we do. Rehearse the righteous acts. Of course, in the Hebrew language, we want to do it so we can rehearse how to speak. Because when the Lord comes, our kingdom isn't going to be spoken in English all the time. Not in French, not in Creole, not in Patois, not in Spanish, not in Portuguese. We're going to be speaking Hebrew when the Lord comes. These angels are going to be speaking the Lashawan Qadash. Christ is going to know the Lashawan Qadash. The Most High is going to know the Lashawan Qadash. So we better know the Lashawan Qadash. That's part of preparing the kingdom of heaven. To learn the language of the kingdom of heaven. Alright, we want to learn the language of the kingdom of heaven, which is the Hebrew language. Everyone spoke Hebrew in the Bible. Alright? Everyone spoke Hebrew in the Bible. Alright? Well, so like almost everyone. I can't say so for the heathens. Not every heathen knew our language. So let's get it. Let's get the next conjugation, which is going to be we. Remember, when it comes to conjugating verbs, everything is based off the subject pronoun. Alright? Everything is based off the subject pronoun. Alright. Here we go. Here's the next conjugation on the board. Remember, when it comes to conjugating verbs, conjugate meaning to change, meaning this verb is going to change in some way, shape, and form. There's going to be a difference in some way, some shape, and form. So now, we have, remember, when you conjugate these verbs, it's always based off of the subject pronoun. Remember, it's always going to be based off of the subject pronoun. So, the subject pronoun we have on the board is anaknawa, meaning we. The subject pronoun is we. That's the subject pronoun. This is your I in the paleo, this is your na in the paleo, your cha in the paleo, and your na and your wa. Same here, but in the Syrian. Your ah, your na, your cha, your na, and your wa. Anaknawa. Anaknawa. So anaknawa is how you would say we. So the subject pronoun for anaknawa. Alright? And the subject pronoun for we is anaknawa. So the subject pronoun for we is anaknawa. Alright? The subject pronoun for we is anaknawa. Alright? Now, to conjugate the verb in the past tense based off of the subject pronoun anaknawa would be nathannawa. 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 Yana, yatha, yana, and then nawa. Same here in the Syrian. Yana, yatha, yana, then yanawa. This is yana, yatha, and then yana. Nathan, meaning to give. Then nawa, meaning that's the conjugation right here. So nathan nawa, nathannawa, nathannawa, meaning we gave. So when you conjugate the verb, alright, when you conjugate it in the past tense, anaknawa, nathannawa. Anaknawa, nathannawa, meaning we gave. So, if you want to conjugate nathan based off of the subject pronoun we, which is anaknawa, you would add nawa at the end. Most of these conjugations are based off of the end. Alright? Most of these conjugations in the past tense, all of it is based off of the end. Alright? At the end. It's at the end of it. Alright? It's at the end. So all the conjugations are at the end of the verb. Based when it comes to conjugating verbs in the past tense. So anaknawa, nathannawa. So anaknawa, nathannawa, meaning we gave. So anaknawa, nathannawa, meaning we gave. Anaknawa, nathannawa. Alright, meaning we gave. That is how you conjugate the verb. Alright, nathan, based off of the subject pronoun. Anaknawa, which means we. Remember, if you have any questions, put it into the live chat, alright? If you have any questions, put it into the live chat. Okay, so now let's get the next subject pronoun in the next conjugation on the verb, on the board. All right. All right. What we have on the board now is the next conjugation. All right. This is what we have on the board now. All right. What we have on the board now is the conjugation for nathun, based off of the subject pronoun athum, which is you plural, or y'all, like you all, like that is you plural. That's how you would say that's you plural, meaning there's more you, like y'all, you all. That's you plural. All right. So athum is how you would say you, but pluralized, like y'all or you all. So athum, you have athum. This is your athum, your tha, and your ma. Your your tha, and your ma. In the English, athum, meaning you plural. So athum is the subject pronoun for you, plural. Athum is the subject pronoun for you, plural. Remember, when it comes to conjugations, everything is based off of the subject pronoun. In order to conjugate the verb nathun, it is based off of the subject pronoun. All right. So this is how you would conjugate it. All right. You would add thumb at the end of it. Nathun thumb. Right. Nathun thumb. Nathun thumb. Nathun thumb. You can, no matter what verb you use, thumb will always be at the back of it, because that's how you conjugate it. Nathun thumb. Nathun thumb. So this is your na, this is your tha, this is your na. Then thumb. This is your na, this is your tha, this is your na. Then thumb. Nathun thumb. No matter what verb you use, thumb will always go at the end of it. That's what identifies this conjugation for you plural. Alright, this is how you know that's the conjugation for you plural. That thumb that goes at the back of the verb. Nathun thumb. So, nathun thumb. Nathun thumb. Nathun thumb. So, athum, nathun thumb. That's how you would conjugate you plural in the masculine tense, or the position of authority tense. Atham thumb. Atham thumb. Alright, nathun thumb. Nathan thumb. Alright, meaning y'all gave or you all gave. So atham, nathan thumb is how you would conjugate. Right? Nathun thumb is how you would conjugate nathun based off the subject pronoun atham, which is you plural in Hebrew. Alright? Nathun thumb. Nathun thumb. Alright, let's get it. Let's get the conjugation for you plural, but in the subservient tense or the feminine tense. Alright? Not too much of a difference though. We won't be changing much. Alright? Won't be changing much. All right. Not that much of a change, right? So, this is a thun. This is how you would say you plural, right? This is the subject pronoun for you plural, but in the feminine tense or the subservient tense. Nathun, not Nathun, so like it. A thun. A thun. This is your your tha, and your na. This is your your tha, and your na. A thun. A thun. Here it goes in the English. A thun. A thun. You plural feminine. Anthun. A thun. Alright, so a thun is the subject pronoun being used. So when we want to conjugate the verb nathun, it's going to be based off of the subject pronoun athun, which is you plural in the feminine tense or the subservient tense in the English. Alright? So athun. So nathun thun is how you would conjugate that verb. Nathun, but then you add a thon at the end. Not a thumb, but a thun at the end. Nathun thun. So a thun, nathun thun is how you would say y'all gave, but in the feminine or subservient tense. That's how you would conjugate nathun. So you have a thun, nathun thun. This is your na, your tha, then your na, your tha, and then your na. Here we go in the Assyrian. Your na, your tha, your na, your tha, and then your na. Nathun, nathun tha. Nathun than. It's like a nathun than. Nathun than. Nathun than. Nathun than. Alright? So like a nathun. Nathun than. Alright? A thun, nathun than. Alright? That is how you conjugate nathun. Nathun than. That's how you conjugate. Alright? Nathun. Based off of the subject pronoun athun. Alright? That's how you would conjugate it. Alright? If you guys have any questions as well, make sure you guys put it into the live chat as well. Alright, we have one more conjugation. One more conjugation. Not too hard. Nothing to worry about. Pretty easy. It's the last conjugation for the past tense. We're going to get they. All right, here we go. Now this is the last conjugation. All right, when it comes to the past tense. Okay? So remember, when it comes to conjugating verbs in the Hebrew, it's going to always be based off of the subject pronoun. They is a subject pronoun. So the word they is a subject pronoun. In Hebrew, they can either be spoken in the masculine tense or the feminine tense, the position of authority tense or the subservient tense. Ham is the masculine tense. Han is the feminine tense. Ham is the masculine tense. Han is the feminine tense. Ham is the position of authority tense. Han is the subservient tense. Ham is the position of authority tense. Han is the feminine tense. Alright? So here you go. This is your ha and your ma. Your ha and then your na. This is your ha, then your ma, your ha, then your na, which is ham or ham and han. Ham and han. Ham, masculine tense. Han, feminine tense. Ham, masculine tense. Han, feminine tense. Alright? Alright? Now to conjugate this verb, you would add a wa at the end, which is nathunwa. So nathunwa is how you would conjugate nathun in the past tense, based off of the subject pronoun ham and han. It's the very same thing. It's for both. So no matter if it's masculine or feminine, you would always put a wa at the end. So nathunwa, meaning they gave, whatever it may be. So ham nathunwa or han nathunwa. So ham nathunwa or han nathunwa. Ham nathunwa or han nathunwa. Ham nathunwa, han nathunwa. That is how you conjugate nathun, based off of the subject pronoun they. Alright? Which is either ham or han. Ham, masculine tense. Han, feminine tense. Alright? With that, Imadium, which means to stand. We're going to give a courage salute to the sisters. It's like we're going to give a courage salute to the brothers. Men of Israel, Amam Shabbat, Imadium, Barak, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua Bukathum, Yadamata. Sar Ba'akwafim means turn and face the sisters. Men of Israel, we're going to give a courage salute to the sisters. Men of Israel, Amam Shabbat, Imadium, Barak, Yahweh Shema Alathun Ba'ashim Yahushua. Yadamata. With that, class dismissed.